Good Monday morning. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Right now on Morning News Now, flight frustration, tempers taking off at airports nationwide after Southwest cancels more than 1,000 flights over the weekend, leaving many passengers stranded and stressed out.
The soonest they can put me in on a flight is Wednesday.
We have kids, we have a daughter in high school, we have jobs.
What Southwest now says is to blame, plus an update on the ripple effects it's still having this morning. Game changer. We're following breaking news in the fight against the coronavirus as Merck files for emergency use of an oral COVID medication. We'll explain what it is and what it could mean as new cases trend down. No further action. More breaking news from overnight. Police in London dropped their investigation into sexual assault claims against Prince Andrew. What this means for the Duke of York and the investigation taking place here in the U.S. Reinstated. A controversial abortion ban is back in effect in Texas. More on an appeals court ruling amid protests against the most restrictive abortion law in the country. And sky's the limit. We're celebrating the International Day of the Girl with a look at one program that's empowering young women to break barriers in science, computers, and technology. There's a lot going on that we're celebrating this morning, actually.
Yeah, no kidding. International Day of the Girl. It's National Coming Out Day. Some of you might be off today because it's a holiday.
Yes, exactly, exactly. But we're happy to be with you and happy if you're here watching us. We begin this morning with the chaos at airports across the country after Southwest Airlines canceled thousands of flights over the weekend.
Yeah, and the situation so far not getting any better this morning. The airline has already canceled more than 300 flights. Southwest blamed bad weather and staffing shortages for the delays, leaving passengers stranded at airports and stuck waiting for updates. MSNBC anchor Candace Gibson has the latest for us.
Savannah and Joe, good morning. Yeah, the country's fourth biggest airline is busy this morning trying to reposition crews and planes, hoping to avoid a third consecutive day of cancellations and delays.
Southwest Airlines is scrambling to control a travel fiasco. From Dallas,
Unbelievable. You know, people are frustrated, aggravated.
to Denver, where long lines stretch through the airport.
The soonest they can put me in on a flight is Wednesday.
And then they said they can get us out on Tuesday. Today's Sunday. We have kids, we have a daughter in high school.
Passengers desperate to get rebooked onto new flights. Southwest canceled at least 1,800 flights this weekend. Sunday alone, 27% of its fleet grounded. Frustration taking flight. If the long lines weren't bad enough, passengers faced as much as an 8-hour wait to reach someone on the phone. These travelers in Las Vegas resorting to sleeping on the bare floor. In a statement, Southwest blamed air traffic control issues and bad weather in Florida from Friday. But the FAA said its traffic control issues were long resolved. Southwest then released another statement saying after cutting back flights during the pandemic, recovering during operational challenges is more difficult and prolonged.
No, it's not a good day to be a Southwest Airlines passenger.
Some experts blamed shortages.
What's going on is Southwest scheduled too many flights. They are struggling with pilot recruitment.
The airline saying tonight, we're working diligently to accommodate our customers as quickly as possible. This all comes just hours after the Airlines Pilots Association filed suit over its vaccine mandate for employees, which takes effect in 2 months. Pilots Union saying this isn't their fault. They're there and ready to fly.
With an estimated 120,000 passengers impacted by the cancellations, it could be some time before Southwest is back up to speed. Savannah and Joe?
All right, Candace, thank you.
Yes, thanks. And now for more on all this, let's bring in travel expert Mark Elwood. Mark, good morning. Thanks for being with us. So we just heard about this in Candace's piece there, but the FAA released a statement saying they have not experienced any staffing shortages since Friday. So why is Southwest the only major airline to report such a large number of cancellations? And how is it possible that they weren't prepared for this at all?
Well, it's just a game of pass the buck, isn't it? No one wants to be responsible for all these flight cancellations. The simplest explanation, Henry was right. Flights have always operated on a really tight supply chain, and we've seen supply chains really stretch, shortages in supermarkets. What airlines are seeing is exactly the same thing. They cut back during the pandemic. Their turnarounds are very tight. One domino goes down, 8 flights get cancelled. And Southwest is really the current example of it. I wouldn't be surprised to see many other airlines having similar problems.
So, Mark, we're already seeing more delays and cancellations this morning for Southwest. Full disclosure, I've got a few Southwest, excuse me, I'm getting choked up over this. I've got a few Southwest flights coming up, including later this week. What's your advice to passengers who have flights on Southwest today or the rest of the week? How long could it take for the airline to get back to its normal schedule?
It depends. You know, it's the ultimate answer. It depends. They're working very hard. What I always say, there's a great app called Flighty, which is the word flight with a Y. It's essentially the ultimate notifier of problems, and I rely on it. It's much more efficient than the airline's own systems. So it gives you a quicker notification if there's a problem with your flight. It is a paid-for app, but the first flight you take with it, you get all the features for free. So download it for this week. Road test it, and if you get a cancellation, you'll get earlier notification than the masses, which always helps.
Wow, that's some good information. I think I know somebody who might be signing up for that free trial this week. Now, Mark, also one other piece of news associated with Southwest. We know that the Pilots Association filed a lawsuit last week asking a federal court to block the company's vaccine mandate for its employees. Could this legal battle be playing a role here at all in these mass cancellations we're seeing?
Oh, look, everything is stretched to breaking point. And the staff know that. They've been working very hard. They laid off a lot of people. All the airlines really cut back. If you're seeing staff saying, we don't like this vaccine mandate, they're not going to be predisposed to come into work when they don't have to cover a friend when they don't have to. So all of it taken together puts Southwest under a lot of pressure.
All right. Mark Elwood, quite the mess. Thank you so much for walking us through it this morning. Good to see you.
We have breaking news in the fight against COVID. Merck and Ridgeback have officially submitted an emergency use authorization application for its oral antiviral medicine to treat coronavirus. If approved, it would be the first oral antiviral medicine to treat mild to moderate cases of coronavirus. According to the company's data, the antiviral helped reduce the risk of hospitalization or death by an estimated 50%. While it is not a replacement for the COVID vaccine, the medicine could help significantly slow the spread of COVID. Let's bring in NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel for more. So, Dr. Patel, let's start right there. Can we expect to see the FDA review this application? When do you think that'll happen? How big of a step would this antiviral be in fighting COVID as we go into the winter?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. It's going to be reviewed. It will also likely require one of those advisory committees. So expect that to happen. As fast as we've seen that happen, again, is 3 to 5 weeks. But I know the FDA is trying to do this quickly because Merck itself has committed to about 2 million doses to be available in the United States this year alone, and the year is ending soon. So you expect that to happen. And initially, Joe, I expect it to be limited probably to people who have a positive COVID test and have had symptoms for a certain number of days, maybe some high-risk conditions, populations that won't get it likely early on, children, adolescents, and possibly pregnant women might be excluded initially. And then as the drug gets more experience after emergency use, we could see those indications expanded.
That could be some positive news. We're also seeing some new signs of hope this morning with new CDC data showing COVID cases down 12% compared to last week. Dr. Fauci had this to say about the drop in cases.
Over the last few weeks, we've seen a turnaround in the slope in going down in both cases and hospitalizations. Deaths are still up, but it's really flattening, so it's a lagging indicator. I strongly suspect that you're going to start seeing the deaths go down similar to the hospitalizations. How quickly they go down and how thoroughly they go down is going to depend a lot on a number of circumstances, which will be influenced by things like the colder weather, people doing things indoors.
So, Dr. Patel, the big question is why? Why are these cases dropping, and what does it mean for all these COVID precautions we're still taking?
Yeah, Joe, listen, you'd think 20 months into this, we would have this kind of down literally to an exact explanation. We don't, but we do know there are 3 factors driving these decreases. Number one, vaccinations and natural immunity. People getting infected or people who have had vaccines kind of in the previous weeks. We're seeing that effect now. That's a big driver. Second is kind of to Dr. Fauci's point, human behavior. When we tend to see cases increasing, we do tend to change our behavior consciously or unconsciously, restrictions or not. We just change what we do. And then the third, there is some seasonality to this this virus. We've seen these surges, and they last anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks. The Delta surge is no different. It's about a 2.5-month kind of length, and that's what previous surges has been. Of course, the largest surge we've had to date is winter, so we'll all be looking at this winter. I expect it to be a much better one, but as Dr. Fauci again emphasizes, it'll be up to our behaviors and our vaccination rates, which are getting better, but need to get stronger.
Before we get to winter, we have some hopeful guidance from Dr. Fauci about Halloween. Here's what he had to say about that.
You can get out there. You're outdoors for the most part, at least when my children were out there doing trick-or-treating, and enjoy it. I mean, this is a time that children love. It's a very important part of the year for children. I know my children enjoyed it. So, I mean, again, particularly if you're vaccinated. If you're not vaccinated, again, think about it, that you'll add an extra degree of protection to yourself and your children and your family and your community. So it's a good time to reflect on why it's important to get vaccinated, but go out there and enjoy Halloween as well as the other holidays that will be coming up.
So you touched on this a little already, but could we expect similar guidance for the remaining holidays later this year?
Yeah, I do. I think that we'll have, look, we have to emphasize that vaccines have been working, and they are. And so if you have the majority of your household, and listen, Joe, I hope we'll have children in that included in that population. If the majority of your household is vaccinated, you are incredibly protected. And if you're sticking around, and look, if we're all trying to take Southwest Airlines flights, we're not going anywhere probably anytime soon. So it does seem to reason that we'll need to have at least precautions, whether you're flying, driving, or going to just a friend's house down the street, asking about vaccinations, but it is going to be a much better holiday season than last year. I think that fear that overwhelmed us last year before we had a lot of vaccine available, before we even had these treatments and antivirals available, changes the game for this winter.
Now, hopefully, if you have a Southwest Airlines flight, say on Thursday,
you'll be fine. We're all downloading that app, but you know we're going to be fine.
Sounds good. Dr. Kavita Patel, as always, thanks so much.
Just for example, Thursday. All right, Democrats dodged a boomerang in the battle over raising the debt ceiling, but it's coming right back to haunt them in less than 2 months. Their next steps for avoiding smashing through the debt limit are still unclear. Here's Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen yesterday on the potential economic fallout if that happens.
There's an enormous amount at stake. A failure to raise the debt ceiling would probably cause a recession and could even result in a financial crisis. It would be a catastrophe.
Joining us now, national political reporter Sahil Kapoor and White House correspondent Mike Memoli. Good morning to both of you. Thanks for being here. And Sahil, I will begin with you. So it's a new week, but with those same looming economic crises facing Congress. So how prepared are Democrats to take on raising the debt ceiling and averting another potential government shutdown?
Yeah, Savannah, it looks like they just pushed it a couple of months to December, and we're going to do this all over again pretty soon. Now, the Congress is on a better path on government funding. There's kind of a handshake agreement on, you know, Democrats get their increases in domestic spending and Republicans get their increases in Pentagon and military spending. That's what the two sides want. So they should be able to get that done in time. But the debt limit, that's a whole other issue. This punt that they did to December, the way they did it is going to make it much more difficult to get that done in December. And that's a much more serious issue. The government can shut down. It's happened quite a few times over the last decade or so. But a debt default has never happened in U.S. history. And that would be much more calamitous to the economy. And the simple reason for this complexity is that Republicans had a very hard time finding 11 votes to break a filibuster just on a 2-month extension. And the Senate Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, has gotten a lot of criticism, including from Donald Trump, the leader of the party, which has affected his ability to move Republican senators the next time around. This is going to be a big, big fight.
Yeah, Mike, let's now talk about the White House part of this. I mean, we heard that dire warning from Secretary Yellen. Sahil just echoed that. So what is the White House's strategy? Are they wrangling Democratic leaders to figure out a way to get that done?
Well, it's not clear, actually, Savannah. I mean, when you look at how the White House debt relief strategy has played out over the last few months, it's largely been to defer to the leadership in the Congress in terms of how to proceed moving forward. And there's a lot of criticism, as Sahil mentions, of Mitch McConnell, his fellow Republican colleagues accusing him of really caving here to Democrats. But what he has successfully done for his party is punted this only 2 months, which means there's that much more pressure on the Democrats to figure out what they're going to do. Are they going to try to carve out something in the filibuster to allow a debt ceiling increase with just 50 votes? Are they going to go through that incredibly complicated process of reconciliation? It was clear as Democrats reacted to McConnell's move last week that they really weren't sure that they had found their own answer. They did think they had the upper hand in a political fight. McConnell has now diffused that, and it's not clear, short of President Biden reaching out to his old colleague, Mitch McConnell, and hammering something out, whether there's going to be a deal, especially when McConnell isn't really asking for anything.
Right. And now, Mike, in addition to these crises, I mean, President Biden and the White House are still working to pass his sweeping economic agenda with those 2 massive bills in Congress. How's that going?
Well, it's been an intense few weeks, as you know, with a lot of meetings primarily at the White House, but also that time President Biden did, as you see there, go up to Capitol Hill himself to try to lobby Democrats. The House is coming back into session just for one day this week, and otherwise both the House and Senate are out of town. So it's a little bit of a cooling off period in terms of those intense meetings, which means that the president may try to hit the road. We saw that last week when I was traveling with him in Michigan and Illinois. The White House really sensing the need to speak more directly to the public about what exactly is in these proposals, especially as the president's approval rating is taking a hit. And so that really will be the focus in the week ahead. But as we know, once Congress gets back, it's all about Manchin and cinema. And so some private conversations are likely to be having behind the scenes this week, at least remotely.
Absolutely. And Sal, I want to bring you in on the same topic and first reference one of your latest pieces for NBCnews.com, in which you make the point that the Biden spending agenda isn't really just about the next 10 years, but it's about the 2022 midterms, saying the party's only realistic hope of keeping those payments going is to pass Biden's social spending bill, contributing to the high stakes of inter-party negotiations. So, Tommy Sahel, how worried are Democrats about potentially losing control of Congress?
Very worried, and they should be. Just on the basis of history, the party in the White House almost always loses seats in the midterm elections. Lately, President Biden's approval rating has fallen. Democrats' advantage in the so-called generic ballot, which is where you ask voters which party they want to control Congress, has also fallen. And the last Democrat who gained seats in a midterm election was FDR, going all the way back to the 1930s, as Mike Memoli and I have reported in the past. So what I'm talking about here in this piece is those child tax credit payments, which is the centerpiece of President Biden's American Rescue Plan, one of the proudest achievements that Democrats have put on the books so far. But there's a big problem with that. Those payments dry up at the end of this year. So come January, a lot of those parents who have been relying on that $250 to $300 a month per child to help raise them are not going to see them unless this bill passes. So that's an incentive it's a big incentive, kind of a forcing mechanism for Democrats and the White House to get this done, because if they don't, not only will they fail to get that extra advantage, but it will turn into a big liability.
Absolutely. And Sahel, quickly before I let you go, one last piece of business. The January 6th Select Committee investigating the insurrection issued a new round of subpoenas at the end of last week. So now this time they're for 2 people and a company associated with organizing the Stop the Steal rally. So the committee is expected to have another busy week. Give us a little preview of what could come up.
Yes, another busy week. Those third round of subpoenas went out late last week to 2 organizers of the so-called Stop the Steal rally, as well as the group itself called Stop the Steal. But more important than that, Savannah, they've got a number of subpoena deadlines of previously issued ones coming up this week. One of them for 4 individuals who have been in Trump's inner circle. You see them on the screen right there. They were supposed to produce documents by October 13th, last Thursday, and they're supposed to show up for depositions this coming week. It's really unclear the extent to which they're cooperating, but it is quite clear they're not fully cooperating at this moment. So it's a gut check moment. It's a big test for this committee in terms of how effective it's going to be in enforcing these subpoenas. Is it going to put out criminal referrals to the Justice Department as it's threatened? Is the AG, Merrick Garland, and the U.S. attorneys, are they going to move swiftly to do that? Or are these individuals who NBC has confirmed are told by the former president not to comply? Are they just going to get away with it? Savannah?
All right. Sahil Kapoor and Mike Memoli, thank you for that comprehensive roundup as we kick off the week.
Captain Kirk will have to wait one more day for his mission to space. William Shatner, who of course played Kirk on the original Star Trek series, was supposed to fly to space aboard a Blue Origin rocket tomorrow, but the launch was now pushed back to Wednesday because of high winds forecast at the launch site. At 90 years old, Shatner will become the oldest person to ever go to space, surpassing Wally Funk, who at 82 years old rode with Jeff Bezos on Blue Origin's first manned mission back in July.
We still remember you, though, Wally.
Wally. She's held that title for 2 months, so yay. All right. Time for a check on your morning news now weather.
Janessa Webb is with us on this Monday. Hi, Janessa. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. You know, I always like to report on pretty calm weather. Last week, great conditions. This morning, man, we've had some real destruction across Oklahoma. For the eastern half of that area. I want to show you some video. We had a tornado outbreak in central and eastern sections of that area. Over 12 report confirmed tornadoes, and they'll be picking up the pieces for the next couple of days as another round of severe weather is going to be happening across that area. Right now on our radar is northern Louisiana to Arkansas, and then the northern half of this squall line that's going to run through Chicago, St. Louis this afternoon. Now, the primary threat for severe weather this afternoon, with temperatures being so high, will be damaging wind gusts across this area and still a few tornadoes possible. Today, it's only a slight risk. Then that same area that we dealt with last night really deals with another round of severe weather by tomorrow. Look at some of these rain totals. We were talking about 1 to 2 inches, torrential rain up to 3 inches, and then another high impact weather day of severe weather for 6 million people as we go into Tuesday. So unfortunate situation as warmer air is currently in place. On the other end, the West Coast, we're talking about 15 inches of fresh new snow. I'll show you exact locations coming up.
All right.
Goodness.
A lot of folks looking forward to that.
No, already. All right. Thanks, Janessa. And we're back with breaking news on the royal family. London's Metropolitan Police will not take any further action against Prince Andrew after reviewing evidence of alleged sex abuse against a minor. The review was prompted by a civil suit filed here in the U.S. by Virginia Giuffre, who claims the Duke of York forced her to have sex with him at various properties owned by former financier Jeffrey Epstein and his associate Ghislaine Maxwell when she was only 17 years old. Prince Andrew, who is the Queen's third child and 9th in line to the royal throne, has not been charged with a crime and has denied all allegations. The Metropolitan Police said while their review is complete, they will continue to work with other agencies leading the investigation into matters with Epstein.
Now to Minnesota, and one of the worst mass shootings the city of St. Paul has ever seen. Police there arrested 3 men in connection to a shootout at a bar that left 1 woman dead and 14 others injured. NBC News correspondent Megan Fitzgerald has the latest.
Joe and Savannah, good morning. Multiple law enforcement agencies are assisting St. Paul police with what is still a very active and ongoing investigation. Neighbors in this community say this is the worst tragedy they've ever seen in their city.
7th Street West Truck Park Bar on a shots fired. Multiple callers. Copy. 3 shots inside the bar. 1.
A horrifying scene unfolding inside a packed bar in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Copy. Starting at least 4 medics.
I got 1 fading here.
Police calling it one of the worst shootings the city has seen.
I heard the gunshots and I went to the ground and I could see 4 or 5 people that had been hit.
This is not the place to be right now. This is chaos.
Multiple suspects opening fire in this bar just after midnight. Cell phone video capturing some of the chaos unfolding inside.
There were gunshot wound victims lying in the street outside the bar. There were gunshot wound victims lying on the sidewalk outside the bar. And there were gunshot wound victims lying on the floor inside the bar.
More people over here, too, bro. People are laid out.
Good Samaritans jumping in to help officers render aid. A total of 15 people shot. 14 rushed to the hospital. A 20-year-old woman tragically dying inside.
This is nothing short of a tragedy. Our hearts break for the young woman who died and for her loved ones.
A grieving family joined by an entire community. The chief of police taking to Twitter to say, hearts are broken. Victims, families, community, and officers. We will bring justice to the victims. Earlier today, police arresting 3 suspects connected to the shooting as multiple law enforcement agencies work with St. Paul police to answer lingering questions. How did this happen and why? Police say they will be releasing the names of the 20-year-old victim along with the other victims inside that bar later on today. But this morning, this is a community that is grieving and anxiously awaiting answers. Joe and Savannah.
All right, Megan, thanks so much.
Now, tensions continue to grow between China and Taiwan, with both in a fierce tug of war over the island's independence. Now there are mounting fears that a larger conflict could be brewing. NBC News foreign correspondent Janice Mackey-Freyer reports from Beijing.
Good morning, Savannah and Joe. You know, there's nothing new about hostility around Taiwan. The dispute has lingered for decades. What's different this time is that China has never been more militarily prepared.
Taiwan marked its National Day with flags, fanfare, and defiance. The island's president, Tsai Ing-wen, vowing Taiwan will not be forced to bow to China. Taiwan is standing on the front line of defending democracy, she said. China has long viewed Taiwan as its own national territory. China's President Xi Jinping on Saturday all but declaring it policy. The complete reunification of our country must be and will be realized, he said. China has been pushing that point and tension to historic new highs. In the past week, sending nearly 150 warplanes into Taiwan's air defense zone, forcing Taiwan's fighter jets to scramble, missile systems to deploy.
At some point, there's going to be a miscalculation, and that would be dangerous for the entire region.
U.S. officials say they're concerned by all the provocation here and warn China against hostile pressure.
This is about China increasingly challenging American primacy in this part of the world, but also threatening to displace the values that define us.
Officially, the U.S. doesn't take sides in the dispute over Taiwan, but just approved a $750 million arms sale to the island. There are reports of training, too, with American troops, including a special operations unit and U.S. Marines said to be stationed on Taiwan for over a year.
Taiwan is now seen as a central issue for President Biden, who will meet with Xi Jinping in a virtual summit before the end of the year. For now, military confrontation over Taiwan probably isn't imminent, but it's also not impossible. Joe, Savannah, back to you.
All right, Janice, thank you so much. And now let's look at what else is making news around the world this morning.
NBC's Matt Bodner joins us from Moscow. Matt, good morning.
Joe, Savannah, good morning. Let's start this one off today, actually in Maryland, where a couple was arrested over the weekend for allegedly attempting to sell military secrets to a foreign state. Now, the technology in question is quite sensitive. It's information about the design of the nuclear reactors used in American submarines. This couple was trying to sell the information to someone that they believed to be an agent of another country, but he was actually an FBI agent undercover. Moving on now to Brazil, where Pfizer has announced plans to fully vaccinate an entire city. The goal of this study is to determine the vaccine's effectiveness over time and how well it holds up to new variants, and in a very kind of true-to-life situation. And the city picked for the study is the city of Toledo in Brazil, where 98% of the city has already been vaccinated. And we'll wrap this up with some animal news. A zoo in northeastern France is celebrating the arrival of a baby white rhino. The baby's name is Mossel, and he pulled himself up into a standing position just an hour and a half after he was born. That is very impressive by human standards. Not sure about rhinos, but it's impressive. And he's the third child of a 21-year-old named Tala, who the zoo has described as a very gentle mother. Back to you guys.
Very cute. That is certainly impressive by human standards. I don't know the rhino standard.
Yeah,
we'll have to look into
I know,
that.
yeah.
All right.
Oh, it's pretty cute. I don't think I've ever seen a baby rhino. All right. Thanks, Matt.
When the play Chicken and Biscuits officially opened on Broadway last night, it marked a few major milestones. The show's director, 27-year-old Xylon Livingston, became the youngest black director in Broadway history. The show is also Douglas Lyons' first Broadway show as a playwright, plus 28 other members of the cast and crew made their Broadway debuts last night. The premiere happened in front of a celebrity-packed audience with stars like Molly Ringwald, Misha Barton, and Jesse Mueller filling some of the seats. Chicken and Biscuits is one of 7 new plays written by black playwrights on Broadway this year. That is actually a record, so it's great to see that, and with more to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you seen any of these, Joe?
I have not seen Chicken and Biscuits yet, no, but that's definitely on the list of those to see.
Very cool. Also, Misha Barton, throwback. Haven't thought about her in a while. That's pretty cool. All right, thanks, Joe. Yep. Now, just 2 days after Texas temporarily suspended its ban on abortions, a federal court has overturned the ruling, once again restricting abortions in the state. Clinics rushed to get people seeking the procedure through the door before the ban was reinstated by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. Now, doctors and patients are left in limbo as they wait to see how the next hearing plays out. NBC News legal analyst Danny Cevallos joins us now to break this all down. Hi, Danny. Good morning. So first, just tell us, how are the courts able to overturn the ruling so quickly? And was it somewhat expected, considering this is actually not the first time the Fifth Circuit of Appeals has stepped in on this issue?
In the weird world of injunctive relief, the courts can ask for an emergency injunction or to lift an injunction. In other words, we're going back to the district court, not making a final decision on the case, but ruling that it is paused, this law. Then there's an administrative appeal to the Fifth Circuit, and the Fifth Circuit issues what's called an administrative stay. In other words, saying, look, we haven't ruled on this finally, but for the time being, in order to preserve the status quo, this law is allowed to go into effect. The challenge with these injunction cases is what exactly is the status quo and who stands to be harmed the most, depending on which way it goes, whether the law is allowed to go into effect or not allowed to go into effect. Since the Fifth Circuit only gives us 2 pages to read, we don't really know a lot about their reasoning.
All right. So now the initial ruling, though, to reinstate abortions in Texas has put aside, basically, pending further arguments. So the Biden administration has until tomorrow to respond. What happens next here for this ruling, Danny?
It could go right back. We could ping pong back to that law being stayed or enjoined for the time being. The challenge here is that there are so many procedural complications, intentionally, I should say. The legislature intentionally baked these procedural complications into the law that you're seeing exactly the chaos that the law is designed to reap. In that one court concludes it must be stopped. The next court says, oh, no, it can be allowed. And eventually all roads must lead to the Supreme Court, which could choose to not even hear it, which would be really shocking.
All right, let's talk about the Supreme Court. So as well as 3 abortion-related cases being heard by the Supreme Court tomorrow, the justices will hear a case out of Kentucky involving the Attorney General. Walk us through what's at the heart of that case and what we can expect in the coming months.
This is really just a procedural issue here. It's not really about the core issue of Roe v. Wade or Planned Parenthood v. Casey. Instead, this was a case that went up in the Sixth Circuit. Kentucky challenged it. This was about abortions being performed, again, challenging the fundamental issues of Roe v. Wade. But the Sixth Circuit, I should say, issued a decision on this case. It was over, game over. Then the Kentucky Attorney General comes in and says, oh, no, wait, I want to intervene. I didn't get a chance to be heard. And that's the core of this battle here. The Kentucky Attorney General says, wait, it's not fair. I'm in charge of enforcing the law in Kentucky. I didn't get a chance to appeal in this case. And of course, the court position or the court opinion was that, no, look, you already had a chance. Kentucky was in the case. If we let people come in and intervene after a decision is issued, then the entire judicial framework would fall apart.
All right, Danny Cevallos, as always, we needed you on this one. Thank you so much.
With Halloween now less than 3 weeks away, experts are predicting record levels of spending on costumes this year.
But with demand so high, Halloween enthusiasts might be surprised to find some empty shelves when they go shopping. NBC News senior business correspondent Stephanie Ruhl has more.
After the fright of last year, Halloween is back with a vengeance.
I think it's great that everybody can be up and running like normal.
My favorite part of Halloween is trick-or-treating.
Business is booming at Halloween Adventure, where loyal shoppers and fans bought gift cards to keep the lights on during the pandemic.
Everyone's ready to have a lot of fun.
When things were shut down, were you worried the store might not survive?
To see it come back, it was amazing. Like, we were all so psyched.
Oh my God, man, look at you, man.
Some shoppers getting in the spirit early. Home Depot's 12-foot skeleton, a social media sensation, sold out almost immediately in July. And in Salem, Massachusetts, the Halloween capital of the world, ghosts and goblins have already started creeping in.
Salem in October is craziness.
The Sverker family home has been a local attraction.
It brings us a lot of joy. Decorating, it brings people can come, it doesn't matter who you are. If you love Halloween, just come look at it, take pictures, and it's just a lot of fun for the kids.
Nationwide, shoppers are expected to spend a record $10 billion this year. That's over $1 billion more than pre-pandemic levels. After a year off, Halloween is back in a big way, but decorating our homes might not be so easy. Supply chain backups are haunting U.S. retailers. Shipping delays, trucker shortages, and port congestion all causing a slowdown on inventory.
Historically, we would have delivered probably 90+% of our merchandise to our stores. Today, we're probably at 80%.
Experts say if you're getting witchy this year, shop early for the best selection. Prepare for higher price tags on everything from costumes to candy and even pumpkins. And be flexible if you can't find exactly what you're looking for.
We definitely wanted another 12-foot skeleton, but where we couldn't find it, we ended up going with the littler skeletons.
Nothing can scare off the Halloween spirit. Stephanie Rule, NBC News.
All right, our thanks to Stephanie for that report. And the National Retail Foundation says 65% of Americans plan to participate in Halloween this year. That's up from 58% in 2020, of course, when we were being told to stay home.
Don't participate in Halloween.
Yeah, still a pretty high number for that, 15%. All right, now today is International Day of the Girl, marking a continuous global effort to empower girls and bring attention to the unique challenges they face.
One of those challenges is the dramatic underrepresentation of women in STEM subjects. That's science, technology, engineering, and math. Women make up nearly half of the workforce, but just 27% of jobs in these fields. Girl Lab, an all-girls STEM club in Massachusetts, is hoping to change that.
That's right. And joining us now is the founder of Girl Lab, Meredith Monaco. Meredith, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us, and happy International Day of the Girl. So before we talk about Girl Lab, I just want to get your reaction to that statistic that Joe just read. Why do you think women are so underrepresented in STEM occupations?
Oh, I wasn't prepared for that question. It's a lot of factors. We know that girls lose interest in science and math around middle school, which is why Girl Lab targets those girls in particular. And sometimes girls just aren't guided in that direction to go into engineering or other STEM fields. It just isn't an opportunity available to them.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk more about Girl Lab. You started the program in Massachusetts through the Boys and Girls Club. Tell us more about the work you do and why programs like this are just so important.
So Girl Lab was founded in Lawrence, Massachusetts at the Boys and Girls Club there. We're a STEM club for middle school girls, and we want to empower girls to get into STEM, and then also we give them an opportunity to express themselves in different color choices, and we're very passionate about adding glitter to whenever we can, so we get to be girly and we can be engineers all at the same time.
I love that. We get to be girly and engineers at the same time. Kind of to follow up on what you were just saying, this theme of, what it is in terms of societally, if girls are pushed in one way or not, encouraged to do so or not. Do you think that employers need to foster a more inclusive environment when it comes to this? Because, there's only so much that clubs like Girl Lab can do. We're still in a country where women are paid less on average than men, and recent Nobel Prize winners in science are all men. What do you think about what needs to be done in terms of changing attitudes?
Well, yeah, we have a great DE&I initiative at Raytheon Technologies right now, and we're really hiring more women in higher positions and talking about it a lot. And I think that goes a long way for the adults, too, to see that that the women who are adults can go as far as they want to go within the workforce also.
Meredith, any success stories from the program so far? Anything you've heard from girls who've been part of it and then moved on to do something just incredibly exciting, a dream come true, anything like that?
Well, so we're about to start our 8th year, so we haven't sent girls into the workforce just yet. But we have had girls come in with their report cards, and they're so excited because we helped them with their confidence, and their grades have gone up, and they are considering doing the science fair this year when they wouldn't have considered that in years past. So little things like that have definitely been happening.
Those little things add up, though, to big things.
Yeah, absolutely. And soon, I'm sure you will see them heading into the workforce in fields like this, thanks to you.
All right, Meredith, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. All right. It has been an intense 18 months of pandemic life, but for many, it was also a time to reflect and reconnect.
That's right. And as part of our celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month, NBC News correspondent Morgan Radford shows us how many in the Latino community have been finding their roots and reconnecting with their heritage, even while family is far away.
Priscilla Hernandez is still learning her way around a tortilla press. Oh no, burning tortillas.
But it's a journey she's happy to make. After a long pandemic year spent locked inside, she started to think more about her roots.
I am actually second generation on my father's side and third generation on my mom's side, and both of their families were born in Mexico.
Did the pandemic change your relationship to your identity?
I think so, because I used to work countless hours at work, and once that was no longer a thing, it was like, well, who else am I? So just kind of wanting some sort of connection.
So she signed up for virtual cooking classes.
I make magic.
With the League of Kitchens, a company that uses exceptional home cooks like Angie Vargas.
What are you guys making today?
So today we're making tacos. I'm teaching them how to make tortillas and salsa verde.
To teach traditional ethnic recipes.
Have you seen an increase in demand in classes like these?
Yes. You know, to know who you are, you have to know where you come from.
A growing desire that's being felt by Latinos across the United States. Based on the 2020 census, the number of Hispanic Americans who identify as white dropped by nearly 53% in just the last 10 years, while the share who identified as more than one race jumped by over 560%. A cultural reconnection that's taking shape in many different ways. Language learning company Rosetta Stone says they saw a demand for Spanish learning triple at the start of the pandemic.
Usually by the third or fourth generation of a Latino family, they're pretty assimilated. So that means things like keeping language and keeping tradition becomes harder. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. And with opening up spaces like in digital media, I think it really empowers younger generations to reconnect with their roots.
For Diana Rojas, that impulse to reconnect with her roots led her here. Back to the sound of mariachi music she once loved as a kid.
During the pandemic, my parents and we would sit at the couch at night and we would start watching all of these movies from the Mexican Golden Age cinema. And that just sparked that part of me that just really wanted to go back to singing mariachi.
A love that helped her find new purpose during the pandemic.
It's such a beautiful and unique culture.
I think I made mine a little too spicy, but it's
a pride that Hernandez says is now as much a part of her future as her past.
It just makes you appreciate that we come from two beautiful cultures, living and growing up in the United States, but also having this rich background, and just being able to celebrate that is something that I don't think I'd realize until now.
A celebration preserved.
It's a good start.
For generations to come. Morgan Radford, New Jersey.
And staying with Hispanic Heritage Month, we want to continue shining a light on the backgrounds and experiences of our colleagues right here at NBC News. Their stories shape how we tell the news, not only this month, but all year long.
My story that got me here to 30 Rock is a uniquely Latino one, a uniquely Chicano one.
Me siento feliz el haber logrado mi sueño americano también.
The responsibility of being in a very senior role is to open the doors for other people.
My name is Kurt Jervis. I identify as Chicano, and I am a senior assignment editor.
Mónica Ruiz, soy ecuatoriana.
My name is Janelle Rodriguez. I'm an SVP at NBC News, and my family comes from Puerto Rico.
My family's cross-cultural, so my mom's side is Chicano Mexican-American, and my dad's side has European ancestry. Their background really has given me a lot of strength and motivation to keep working, because my grandmother, she was a migrant farm worker, and she'd have to skip school to work on the farms and to pick onions, and that really instilled in me the importance of education. I was the class valedictorian at my high school, and then I went to Stanford. I really want to make the most out of the opportunities, because I know my ancestors fought so much for me to have those opportunities.
Al llegar acá a Estados Unidos, fue un cambio total. No sabía nada del idioma. Igual dejé a toda mi familia allá, incluso a mi hijo. fue muy duro, pero nosotros veníamos con un propósito en abrirnos caminos para poder darle un mejor futuro a él. Y él ya se graduó, está en la universidad.
It was finally after many years of working when I got a job here at NBC News and my father stood in this very office that he was like, wow, I think that Berkeley degree paid off after all, but it was a long time in coming.
Para mí es un sueño pertenecer a esta compañía, trabajar orgullosamente para NBC. Es un triunfo, es un logro, es algo maravilloso, algo que nunca me hubiera imaginado.
I'm the senior overnight editor, and what we do is we monitor the country and the world for stories, for breaking news stories. And with that, we decide on if we're going to cover them. So I think it's really important to have a newsroom that has all different types of diversities, because your experiences influences which stories speak to you.
We're often, I think, flattened out as a community when it comes to media representation. So I think the more of us who work in the media, whether, again, behind the camera or in front of the camera, you bring all that complexity to the forefront.
Growing up, I would get a lot of questions from classmates like, where are you from? And when I say that my family has Mexican-American heritage, they would be very surprised. And I remember one time, which was really painful that I still remember, was someone would say, then why are you so smart? And that really hurt me. And that really meant that I have to make that part of myself visible, because Latinos, Chicanos, Hispanics, we are a people who are three-dimensional with all different types of talents and gifts to contribute. So I need to be visible about that, because I feel like if I'm not, I'm making the sacrifices that my family made invisible.
Para las personas que estamos lejos de nuestro país, no nos olvidemos de nuestras raíces, hay que mantenerla en el corazón y siempre ser orgullosos de nuestra patria.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.